Hey, this is Jeff Holst, real estate investor and podcast host. If you want to learn how to sharpen your axe and take down your biggest goals, you should be listening to the Small Axe Communities podcast with my good friend, Nico Salgado.
Hi, welcome to the show. I'm Nico Salgado, and I chat with top industry leaders in multifamily and business. I believe that it only takes a small axe to build a lasting empire. And if you want to learn how to use your small axe to accomplish your biggest dreams and goals, then join our Small Axe community and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of the Small Axe Communities podcast. Today we have my good friend Jeff Holst. Jeff is a recovering attorney, a full-time real estate investor with more than 200 residential units and several commercial properties. He is the co-host of the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show, where they mix bourbon, old fashions, and real estate investing. In February, Jeff climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and stood at the highest point in Africa. He is also the co-host and founder of Last Life Ever podcast and is passionate about helping people live the best version of their last life ever. Jeff, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
Yeah, we connected on LinkedIn, and I heard you on a few podcasts, and just your story really resonated with me. You have some really inspiring stories and backgrounds, and your whole journey has really been just inspiring. So I would really like to dig into that. Let's talk a little bit about where you began or your life before real estate. How about that?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a bankruptcy attorney. That's what I trained to do. I did general practice law originally, but I kind of got into bankruptcy shortly after getting out of law school. And I did that for 4 or 5 years. And it was good. I graduated law school in 2006. I started practicing in 2007. The economy fell apart. There was a ton of bankruptcies. We were doing really well. And I did that for a little bit, like I said, but then 2008, later in the year, I was having a really good year, actually. I mean, there were tons of bankruptcies. It was hard for a lot of people, but it was good for bankruptcy attorneys. But I was diagnosed with leukemia, and ended up having to kind of close down my practice for a little while. I had one other attorney that worked with me, and he quit a week before I was diagnosed with leukemia. So we went from 2 attorneys to zero overnight, pretty much. And we ended up piling up a big pile of debt, and a year or so later filed personal bankruptcy myself. And that's when I was like, man, I got to do something different. Like, if I can't work, then I'm not going to be able to produce money. And I didn't know at that point. I thought I might die, so I didn't really know much about anything other than I wanted some passive income. And everyone said real estate was the best place to do that, so I just started buying real estate. I took a job in Tennessee. I moved from Michigan down to Tennessee. I saved up a little bit of money. We bought a $30,000 condo. This condo was like 110, 115,000 2 years earlier, but this was the bottom of the market, so it just made really good sense. I did that with a friend of mine from law school, and we still own it today. It's probably worth 150 or something. And we just kept buying, and then we ran out of money, and we didn't have good credit, so we started doing some hard money things and owner financing deals. And over the next 5 years, I just kept buying, and it was a good time to buy. So that's how I got into real estate, and it's worked out really well. I've been full-time real estate, not working, not practicing law since 2018 now, so a couple years.
Awesome, man. Great story. And it's really unfortunate with the leukemia. And is that something you're still struggling with today?
Yeah, so technically I have it. It's called chronic myeloid leukemia. It's pretty rare, but there's a treatment protocol where I take a pill once a day, and it works. It's a chemotherapy, so it's not ideal, right? It's a little bit hard on your liver, can make you feel upset to your stomach, but it's very targeted, so it doesn't have all the nasty side effects, right? And I've been on that for more than a decade now, and I tolerate it really well, and everything seems to be controlled. So we're
Uh,
optimistic about the future.
good. It's tough though. It's tough to make that switch or transition. A lot of people tend to fall in the trap of just woe is me when they come across a serious illness like that. But you didn't. And was there something inside of you, or how were you able to overcome that negativity or the perceived negativity behind such a serious illness?
So I told this story many times, and I think sometimes people don't believe me, but I don't have bad days. I gave them up when I was 17. I made a choice, right? One day, I don't know why. I wish I could say there was like some magic thing that happened that gave me this idea, but I woke up one day and I said, I'm 17, I'm healthy, I live in America. It can't be that bad. I need to have a good day today. And I said, today's a good day out loud to myself. And I just kept doing that over and over again. And it didn't happen immediately, but probably 3 or 4 weeks after that, after saying today's a good day like dozens of times a day, I walked into a 7-Eleven and the guy behind the counter said to me, "How you doing today?" And I just said, "I never have bad days." I didn't think about it; it just sort of came out of me, and I haven't had a bad day since. It's like 25 years. So when I got diagnosed with leukemia, I refused to have bad days. I had at that point a decade or more of practice at minimizing the negative and focusing on the positive, and that's really what it is, right? It's not like bad stuff doesn't happen to me. That's obvious. I got leukemia. I went bankrupt. Actually, going bankrupt was worse than the leukemia in a lot of ways because I was a bankruptcy attorney and I had to go in front of people I knew and worked with and say, "Hey, I'm bankrupt," right? But what I did at that point is I just try to focus on the positive. I had just gotten back from Machu Picchu when I was diagnosed with leukemia, and that was kind of the last thing on my personal bucket list from when I was a kid. I was a teenager. I kind of made a list of places I wanted to see, and I went, yeah, well, I've had a good life. If I die, I die. I don't want to die, but if I do, I do. I've seen the stuff I want to see, and I got real motivated to get healthy, and I got real motivated to add more things to my bucket list because I didn't want to run out of stuff because I felt like I kind of sabotaged myself by crossing that last thing off because it was literally ridiculous. Everything was going good. I'm making really good money. I have two attorneys in my office, myself and one other guy, a couple of support staff. We're doing really well. I climb up to the top of Machu Picchu. That was in August of 2008, like the end of August 2008. September like 6, right? So like a week and a half later, I'm on my way to bankruptcy. I'm in the hospital dying, like literally that fast, like
Jesus.
top of the world, right to the bottom. and and my brother came into the hospital that first night, and he was like, "I bet today is a bad day," right? Like he was almost like, you know, he was almost like testing me to see if I was going to have a bad day because he knew about this, I don't have bad days thing, and I just kind of went, look, I got diagnosed at 10 o'clock at night. The first 22 hours of the day were pretty good. So today's a good day. We'll worry about tomorrow. And that's been my philosophy pretty much ever since, what's going on right now. That's what matters. What happened in the past probably doesn't matter that much. What's going to happen in the future, all you can really do is point yourself in the right direction and hope it works out.
That's excellent, man. You have such a great outlook, and I guarantee for everybody listening out there, if you can come up with the same type of mentality, the same outlook, just the same positivity, you're already on your way to success. So let's open that up a little bit. So you bought a few properties and you were working at the time, or because you had been bankrupt, how were you able to?
Yeah, I quit practicing law. I went to work for a trucking company, actually owned by my dad. Didn't have a huge salary, but I got a little piece of the profit, so I got some bonuses, and I saved up about $20,000 over about, I don't know, 6 months or so. I didn't have any expenses. That's the nice part about going bankrupt, right? I have an MBA and a law degree, so I've always made reasonably good money. But when I didn't work, I didn't make money, obviously. And actually, the law firm cost me about 5,000 a week to break even. So it wasn't that I wasn't making money; it was that I wasn't making money and I was losing $5,000 a week. And that's a painful situation, and it can drain your resources pretty quickly. Um, and so I went through that, and I went and got this job, and I was making okay money. So we went and bought that first deal for cash. I had saved up 20,000. My partner had about 20,000, and so we each put in like $17,500, and we bought this thing for like 30,000, and we had a little operating reserve, and then we fixed it up a little bit, and rented it out. And like I said, we still own it today. It's worth a lot more. We then a few months later were able to buy another condo in the same building, and then after that we were out of money. We had to figure it out. Just try to do different things. We found one investor that was interested in taking mortgages against our paid off condos. So we got $25,000 mortgages against each one, and we took that 50,000 along with another 25,000 from that same investor, and we went and bought a duplex for 75,000. And then later we borrowed money from that investor at just like an interest 6% interest only kind of deal. He would loan it to this company that we formed that owned the duplex, and we'd go buy something else with it. And he owned a third of it, but he also got interest on his money. It worked good for him, and we were able to do that for a while, and we grew it that way. And then it starts to accelerate after a while. Once you do enough deals, you start flipping and you start making a little bit of cash, a chunk of cash here, a chunk of cash there, start buying some stuff. And then eventually, actually the company I worked for sold, and I got a little bit of severance, and I thought, I don't want to go back to work. Like, I don't want to work for someone anymore. So I figured I'd have to figure it out in real estate. And I did a couple of house flips. I flipped a duplex, and I used the money from the duplex plus some severance I got, along with I partnered with my dad, and we bought a 12-unit deal. And that thing's been great. That was the first multifamily we bought. It was in 2017. So it was like October 2017. And since then, we've just been like, anytime we can find a good multifamily deal, we want it, right? So some of them with my dad, some of them with my partner from Detroit, some of them with my partner from the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show. Quick side note on that. My partner in the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show, I think, has the best name in all of real estate. Kid you not, his name is Brian Leverage. His last name is actually Leverage.
I think he's got it. That's probably the best name for a real estate investor.
So anyway, I actually, that's how I met him. I was talking to a banker, a mutual banker of ours, and this friend of mine, the banker, he said to me, he said, "You've got to meet this guy. He's borrowing a bunch of money from me. He's buying all this stuff, and his last name is Leverage, and he's like the king of leverage." And I'm like, I need to meet this guy. So that's how I met him, and it's been, we've been off to the races since then. We started the show, and we've done a couple of deals together. So we have a few apartment complexes and an office building. So
that's awesome, man. And did you? Well, let's backtrack a little bit. Was there when was it that you actually retired, or so you're currently financially free and you're working full time?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if I call it retired. I don't have a job though, right? Like, I just work for myself, but I took a month off in February this year. I went to Africa for a whole month. So I mean, I guess that's financially free. Like, if you can just not work, right? But I love what I do. That's the key. So it doesn't feel like work. But so it was March of 17 is when I quit working. So it was basically March of 11 when I started buying real estate, and March of 17, like 6 years, I was able to buy enough real estate that I didn't have to have a job. Now, my wife still worked. We get benefits through her work. I don't know if we could live for sure. I mean, we could probably live on the real estate money, but it wouldn't be the same level of comfort that we like, right? So we're still growing, we're still expanding.
That's great, man. And a lot of people, that's a big point for a lot of the listeners. We all think that, people, by buying real estate, it automatically makes you financially free. It's not necessarily the case, And did you have a specific target income that you were shooting for? Or were you just at one point like, well, I'm making enough, I don't need to really work anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't really, if I were going to do it again, I would have a specific number and I'd be way more strategic about it. But what I did is, for that period of time when I was working, we just kept putting more money in, and we didn't take any money out. So it was accumulating, right? And it got to the point where every few months we had enough money to go put a down payment on something or buy something just from the cash flows. And so I knew that we had cash flow, but I never saw any of it. And what happened is, when we sold the company that I worked for, I got like 6 months severance, and I went, I don't want to work for a little while. And then it turned out I didn't really, I liked not working. And so I was like, well, I better do something. So that's when I decided I would try flipping. And then I thought, that's way too much work. I mean, it made a little money, but it got me through another 6 months or so. And I thought, maybe multifamily is where it's at. And the biggest mistake I made in real estate was getting started too late. The second biggest mistake was getting started in multifamily too late. I mean,
Mm.
Value add multifamily it's an incredible wealth accelerator. If it's done right, you can make quite a bit of money. I mean, even that 12 unit, I probably overpaid for. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but we've since refinanced it. We raised the rents a couple $100 a door. Refinanced. We took out more than we put in, so now it's an infinite return. I'm still cash flowing, still own it. Um, could be a lot worse.
Excellent, man. I think it could definitely be a lot worse. And you know what? Those little mistakes, or we call them mistakes, they're learning, tools. And really that's going to help you propel your career further in the future. Now, I kind of want to backtrack for a little bit because I don't know if many people ask you this, but how you seem to have a supportive wife, and I feel like that goes a really long way because if you're putting away money when you could be buying or like going out to dinner or going on vacations, but you're putting away money for the next property. How did she feel about that, and how supportive has she been throughout this process?
Yeah, no one has asked me that actually. So my wife is awesome and super supportive. So that definitely helps. But we when we did that first deal, we just come out of bankruptcy, so we didn't have a lot of money. We had this $20,000 saved up, which was actually a lot of money to us at the time. And my partner in that deal had helped me out a lot when I was sick. He's a lawyer also, and he covered a lot of cases for me and stuff. And she kind of said, "Okay, we can do this. We can take this money." We weren't saving it for any particular purpose. Actually, we were just very fortunate. We got some really good bonuses, so we had piled up cash really quickly. About 3 or 4 months after the bankruptcy, we started getting some really nice bonuses. So about 6 months later, I had a big chunk of cash, um, and and I just said, let's try this and see how it goes. And she said, if it was anyone besides Travis, then we can't do it. But since it's him, let's go for it. And it was up in Michigan, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And we didn't really have that money earmarked for anything. And she did tell me too, if this doesn't work out, we're never buying anything in real estate again. Fortunately, it worked out because it would be really sad if that first deal hadn't worked out, and then I'd be in a completely different place now. But yeah, I mean, what we did is because I was making decent money, we lived off of the money that I made, and we had surplus, and we lived well. I mean, we were able to travel a bunch, and we paid our bills and had decent cars. I mean, we've never been like driving you know really expensive cars. We're always like the 2 3 year old $15,000 cars and stuff. So we haven't really got like super expensive taste. And then later when we started getting some residuals from real estate, because first we were just pouring it all back in, we didn't really think about it, right? It was out of sight, out of mind. When we started getting residuals from that, then we did splurge a little bit, and we probably spent money we shouldn't have spent. But whatever. We have some fancy art now and things like that that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So
You got to enjoy a little bit of it, right? I mean, come on,
yeah,
that's
yeah, for
great.
sure. And I mean, I've spent a ton on travel. Travel is a super passion of mine. You mentioned climbing Kilimanjaro. Man, what a weird time to do that, by the way. I mean, I left February 2. I came back March 3. Coronavirus pretty much shut the world down like a week after I got back. So the whole world was different. It was like I went up one mountain and came down in a different world. Um,
Kind of similar to the Machu Picchu, huh?
yeah, it really is. It's thematic, I think. And it's kind of a weird. I think that the stories you tell about your past are the only thing that really matter, right? Like how you frame what you think about in your past. Like I think about it as like this epic story, right? Like I climb a mount up to Machu Picchu, and I came back in this like terrible situation, and kind of a book ended with climbing Kilimanjaro, and I actually wrote about climbing Kilimanjaro in um, my other podcast, Last Life Ever. We uh, we came out with a charity book a month or so ago called the Coronavirus Collective. All the profits go to charity, but it's just 30 different authors writing about how they're dealing with the global shutdown, all written in the first month of the shutdown. And it's a really really great book, and people should buy it. It's like $20 on Amazon. But I wrote about it in there about climbing Kilimanjaro, and how much I learned from that experience. And that's the thing about travel, right? Is you learn so much, and you enrich your life, and you can enrich the life of other people tremendously by the knowledge that you gain and the people you meet and things like that.
I agree 100%. I'm really big on traveling as well. And I spent a few weeks also in Kenya, close to Mount Kilimanjaro. Is that in Tanzania?
Yeah, Tanzania. So I actually did. I spent uh, a week in Ethiopia, a week in Kenya, and then about 3 weeks in Tanzania.
And did you have a guide or guides take you up the mountain?
Yeah, so you required to for climbing Kilimanjaro, you have to go with a certified guide or whatever. And then we did, of course, we did the Serengeti safari and all that stuff too. And Kenya's great too, by the way. It's a really, really great place to visit. So.
Yeah, I loved it there. We were there for a couple of weeks, camping out and just taking data and research to create a national park out of what was then a national preserve.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
fun,
it's
man.
really
I mean,
great.
these are the experiences that you can pass down from generation to generation that will open your mind to just new cultures and new ways of seeing life. So I think that absolutely invaluable stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the last life ever philosophy, right? That's our whole thing. So, like, when I think about my life, I'm like, I'm trying to always remember, and the leukemia really helps with this, right? I have a daily reminder of my mortality. It's that it's not just about money, it's not just about personal experiences, and it's not even just about, accumulating stuff. It's really about living a full life, and that involves helping other people, fulfilling your own life's purpose. There's just so much more to it than just like piling up cash. Like, anyone can make money if they put their mind to it. I mean, especially if they're, fortunate enough to be living in America. There's tons of opportunities, even in this weird time we're in now. If people really want to make money, they can figure that out.
I agree 100%. And when you're coming from a place of that kind of mentality of abundance and just giving back and not focusing on cash or money the way that it's almost a derogatory term, but you actually get it, it comes to you. So when you're coming from the right place, that wealth will come back to you.
Yeah, and I've had so many opportunities open up to me in the last year, since I started focusing more on helping other people, that it's unbelievable actually. Uh, I started when I quit working. I thought I was just going to hang out at the beach for a little while, and then I got bored, so I started buying apartments, and then I got a little bit thinking, well, this is pretty great not having to work. I should help other people. So we started syndicating a little bit. So some people that were maybe high income earners could buy into our deals. And that's cool too. But then one day I was talking to a guy and he was like, I don't have any interest in real estate. And I was like, that's weird. I never met, like, the people I hang out with love real estate. And then I suddenly went, you know what? Real estate isn't for everyone.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when we came up with the idea for Last Life Ever. It was kind of like, hey, people need to get out there and live the best version of their life, whatever that means to them. And like I said, it's not about money. I mean, Mother Teresa lived a really great life, right? She did amazing things, but she died very poor.
That's right. That's right.
And that's okay, because that's what her life purpose was to help poor people and to dedicate her time to feeding them. And she did amazing things. And anyone who could like look at a camera and say that person wasn't successful, there's something wrong with the person claiming that. By
Uh,
all standards, that's success.
Agreed. 100%. I agree 100%. Yes, absolutely. I kind of want to so you moved, right? You moved from Michigan down to Tennessee.
I did.
And is that when you started looking at multifamily real estate?
Well, I mean, I moved for work, and that's when I started doing real estate in general. Like, before I filed bankruptcy, I didn't have any real estate holdings other than my personal
Okay.
house. And like I said, the big mistake I made was not doing it sooner. I mean, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 19, and I got diagnosed with leukemia at 30, right? So there's like an 11-year period there where I should have been like focusing on real estate. I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I was spending all this time thinking like, well, once I get done with this, then I'll do real estate. Once I get done with law school, once I build up my law firm a little bit more. And the lesson there is, like, you have to follow your passion. You just have to do it. And I wasn't doing that. And the consequence was that when something, catastrophic happened, I wasn't financially prepared for it. And I think following your life's purpose it can be very rewarding. It might not make you rich, and that's okay, like I said. But if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to figure out a way to keep doing it, no matter what
Hmm.
happens to you. And you're not gonna live a life of regret, and that's super important. Uh, I always say, you know, well, two things. One, you shouldn't have bad days. I really believe that, and it's a lot easier if you're following your life's purpose. Good and bad stuff happens to everyone. Focus on the positive, minimize the bad stuff. That's like a core philosophy. But the other core philosophy for me is that all of that becomes a lot easier if you're doing something you love. And so you kind of owe it to yourself, but not just to yourself. You owe it to your family, you owe it to your community, and even really to the world, to do the things that make you the best possible person you can be. Because
Oh,
I can go out there and do this last life ever stuff and tell people and help them do it, and it enriches their lives, but it also enriches the lives of all the people they touch.
oh, Jeff, that is amazing. I love that attitude. That's great, man. You're going to cause like a ripple effect throughout the world, and it's just positivity. I think that is huge. Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
it's just I feel bad kind of doing this because every people ask me to come on and talk about multifamily investing, and I'm constantly turning the conversation to living your best version of your life, because I think that that's actually the important takeaway. Multifamily investing has been amazing for me, but the reason it's been amazing for me is, one, I really like it. I get geeked out looking at apartment buildings. I think they're fun, but the other part is that it affords me a level of freedom to focus on the stuff I'm really passionate about, which is helping people and helping other people figure out how to do it, whether that's how to invest in real estate or whether that's just how to figure out what their life purpose is.
Excellent, man. Yeah, and multifamily and real estate in general is a means, a vehicle for helping people, and I agree 100%. Let's try to let's break down a little bit the differences because you actually are an expert in both multifamily, single family. Can you talk about the differences and what you prefer or the different strategies for buying single family versus multifamily?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I said earlier that the value add multifamily, I think, is one of the greatest places to invest. Obviously, everyone cuts their teeth on the smaller deals, the single family stuff. It's really easy to wrap your head around. Everyone knows what it's like to own a house, or at least has an intellectual idea of what it's like to own a house, because they either own a house themselves, or they live in a house, or they have lived in a house or something, right? But very few people can wrap their head around like apartment buildings, because it's a completely different deal. But the apartment building, it like is valued a completely different way than single family. So you go get an appraisal on a single family house, and the appraiser looks at other single family houses that are similar in the marketplace, whatever, and they come up with uh, a couple of different metrics, like a replacement value, like what it would cost to reproduce it, but then also like a market value, like what it would sell for on the open market. And that's really how you determine the value of single families. When you get above 5 units, though, you move into commercial appraisals. Commercial appraisals are really a metric that measures how much cash flow or how much income that property produces. So they look at the net operating income, which is all of the income minus all of the expenses, excluding debt coverage, like not your mortgage payments, but anything that goes into producing. Like if you owned $1 million building, 100% free and clear, and it made $100,000 a year, then that 100,000 divided by a million is 10%. It's a 10% return on the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that market is a 10% market cap, right? If everything's in that market sells at 10%, which by the way, it's going to be way lower than that, right? In
Yep.
today's market, but the math is easier with 10%. If you increase the income of that apartment building from 100,000 to 110,000, then all of a sudden your property is worth 1.1 million, right? So you've increased the value of it. And that's what I was saying earlier about the 12 unit. We went out and we raised the rents, we cut back on some of the expenses, we got the building reappraised, and went from being worth about 600,000 to being worth about 850,000. We're able to go get a new loan on it, pay ourselves back our down payment, and we still have a really nice asset that's cash flowing really well. And it's all because of this value add strategy, where if you can raise the net operating income, you automatically force appreciation, and the market pays you for it and rewards you for it.
I
It's
think
really
that
you're buying a stream of cash flows. You're not buying a building at that point.
it's true. It's and you're buying a business. I mean, and the I think that's one of the biggest benefits to multifamily as well. You know, the control that you have, along with the forced appreciation, as you stated. Now, you're also doing some syndications, and how do you plan on scaling those, or doing? Do you plan on doing any more
Yeah,
syndications?
so we've done three so far, so it's not like we've done a million of them, right? And ours have been relatively small, and they've been interestingly they've been three completely different deals. One was to buy an office building, another was to buy a retail strip mall, and then the third one was to buy an apartment complex that we're converting into condominiums. So completely different stuff, right? But in each case, we raised a chunk of cash, and we presented to our investors what their return should look like, kind of a range, stuff like that. And it's been really interesting, and it's really cool, frankly, to get a piece of a deal for putting it together and not having to tie up a bunch of your own cash. Like any of those three deals, I could not have done on my own because I needed more cash than I had, and now I get a chunk of them, and I get to play around in this world. It's like I told you, I get geeked out playing with real estate. When I was a kid, I mean, literally when I was like 15, I remember driving by this abandoned warehouse. It was like this huge warehouse. Like I was with my mom in the car, and I was like, someday I'm going to own a building like that. And she was like, you're the weirdest kid ever, right? But that's what I was thinking. So it's again, it's about following your passion. I really want to do bigger and bigger deals. So the plan to scale this stuff is to find deals that make sense, because I'm not willing to. I mean, obviously there's always some risk, but I want very, very safe deals if I'm going to raise money. I don't want to lose an investor's money, because I recognize that that might be their retirement plan. That might be, I'm trying to help them. I'm not trying to hurt them, right? Now,
Hmm.
I know there's risk in everything, and there's always a chance that one of our deals could go bad, but but I really don't want to lose money for an investor. And I feel like if you do, it's kind of game over. You're never getting that investor's money again, but you're probably not getting very many investors' money again. So we're very careful about that, and we're scaling very slowly. And frankly, at this point in the market cycle, I'm even more careful. Coronavirus is a concern, but I've been studying the market cycles. I mean, I even took classes in real estate development, real estate, finance, stuff like that, from Harvard recently, like online Harvard classes, because I was like, I want to understand this stuff really well, and I need to go to the source. So I have all this economic theory about market cycles, and I started studying it, and I'm like, it looks like we're about ready to have a crash. Now, I know people have been saying that I know some people that have been out of the market for 10 years because they're like, we're overdue for a crash. And that's not true. We're not overdue. But we're in the end part of the cycle, and we're going to see a recession. So people need to be really conservative in their underwriting right now. They need to be tying stuff up with long-term financing so they don't have a balloon payment or have to refinance in a recession. Because the thing is, if you bought in 2006 or 7 and you sold this year, you're fine. If you bought in 2006 or 7 but you had to sell in 2010 or 11, you got screwed, right?
Right.
So my strategy is buy whenever you buy, but sell when it's high, and then make sure you're paying attention to the fact that if it's already higher than it has been in the past, which definitely is now, that
Hmm.
you want to make sure it's going to cash flow, that you have a conservative margin. So if rents go down a little bit, it's still going to cash flow, and you can survive whatever might come. And I'm thinking your minimum is a 5 year hold period, and probably you should be looking at 7 to 10 years, because we don't know when the recession will come, but we know one will come.
I agree.
And frankly, we're probably in a recession right now economically because of coronavirus, and that might reset the market cycle, but it might not, right? So we have to be really careful on the real estate stuff until we have more clarity, and we're not going to have that for the next year or so.
It's true, and you really don't want to be in a position where you need to refinance right at the bottom of the market, cycle, or
Right.
even, that's really telling of it could be a make or break, So the financing at this point of the market cycle, where we're heading towards a downturn, you got to be really careful. And I agree with you 100%. Securing that long-term debt is definitely going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you buy a property and you have like 20% down on it and the market goes down 20%, you lost 100% of your investment, right? If it goes down 30 or 40%, you're really in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you can hold it until the market comes back, which is, I mean, as a bankruptcy attorney in 2008 and 9, I saw tremendous numbers of people that got into the market late with arms or balloon payments, or they bought non-cash flowing assets thinking rents will always go up, thinking prices will always go up, and then all of a sudden they were in a world of hurt. I don't want to be in that situation. I've already gone bankrupt once and I'm certainly not doing it again. I'm way past that point in my life. And it's easier to recover when you're 30 than when you're 40, right? I mean, if this
Mm-hmm.
it's just the fact of life. Like you have less time ahead of you and you have to be ready for whatever might come.
Excellent points, man. Jeff, you have been instrumental in, I feel, it, in the journey piece of getting into multifamily, just life outlook in general. And on top of that, just knowledge of market cycles, of syndication, single family, multifamily partnerships. You know, there's so many aspects that you can really touch on and really improve people's lives about if they're looking to reach out to you. And if somebody is looking to reach out to you, what would be the best way for them to get to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hiding, so if they Google me, they're gonna find me. I've been on a bunch of shows, as you pointed out, but Facebook's great. Or another way to find me is jeffreyholst.com, which is my personal website. There's a contact me thing on there. Or they can go to oldfashionedrealestate.com and find me there. We have a Facebook group, Last Life Ever. That's like a private group. That's actually my passion. If you haven't figured that out yet, so if they really want to like engage with me, they need to join that Facebook group and participate in there, and they'll get a lot of positivity and self help kind of stuff. And that's we're not selling anything. That's just literally people trying to work together to live a better version of their life.
I tell you, that might even be the most important part to success in life. So keep rocking that, my man. But I'm not going to let you go without asking you this one question that I ask everybody. Jeff, let's imagine it was 100 years from now and you have lived the best life you can live, and now you've passed away 100 years later, but people remember you for what you did, and somebody wants to write a book about you. What would you like that title of the book to be?
you know, Here's the thing. First of all, no one's ever writing a book about me unless I get really arrogant and write my own book. So I'm not that certain of my legacy. But if someone were going to write a book about me, I hope it's more than 100 years from now, because I plan on living a couple thousand years. Like I have this thing, like I just want to stay alive because I love it. But I'll take your question at face value. I think it would have to be some play on Last Life Ever, because that's what I want to be known for. So maybe something like, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure. Something to have something to do with Last Life Ever. Maybe like he lived his last life, or you only live once. I hate that because that's YOLO, but
Yeah.
and that's like my competing brand, right? Let's people stealing my thunder, but somewhere around those lines. I don't know. People will come up with it. Hopefully, I'll just be so famous it'll just be called Jeff, and then Jeff. I want to read that book.
I
It'll be
like
like
that.
Jobs, right?
I
There's a
like
book
that.
that's just Jobs. That's what I want. I just want my name.
Jeff,
Yeah.
last life ever. I love it, man. That is great. And everything that you do and the mentality that you have is just inspiring. So thank you so much, Jeff, for being on today's show. I really appreciate it, and I know that the listeners are going to get a ton of value from it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a great time.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast, where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.